Hey guys, I'm FatBuddyCat, and this is a wicked little mini bike. Today, we're going to concentrate on installing a high performance 196 into a Coleman CT 100U. The name of the game? Well, we're not going to drill any holes in the stock plate, but we're going to make sure that the engine can move all the way forward and all the way back. If we take this bare block and we place it over these slots, you'll find that they do in fact line up. The problem is right up here. The oil plug hits on the cross member for the foot pegs. If we slide this over a little bit, you can see if we come all the way forward, we're going to be wrapping right off the frame. If we go all the way back, we're okay. But we're limited on how much we can move this thing. What does that affect? Well, when you're setting the chain and you're looking for tension, you're probably going to want a little more adjustment than just this little wheel. That is what that back to front is going to take care of. So I figured out a way that we can do this. It's pretty simple. These are just spacers that I made out of 1-inch by 1/4-inch aluminum bar stock. I then marked and drilled out holes that match GX200 Predator 212 layout. We're also going to be using one of these billet aluminum swap plates to hold everything together. A standard engine mounting set. 4 bolts, 8 washers, 4 nylock nuts. The first thing to go on is going to be the spacers. It doesn't really matter which way they go. I drilled the holes just a little bit wider than the hardware. That way, we don't run into any issues, and it makes it a little bit easier. After the spacers, we put on our billet adjustable plate. These slots are going to line up with the holes in the spacers and the holes in the stock plate. I'm going to feed my bolts through the bottom and then add a washer and a nut to each one. Obviously, the engine's going on top. I think you can see there. Yeah. Some things in life are just awkward. I happen to be one of them. But I'm going to try my best to show you what we're working with. Right now, we are in the full back position. That is full forward. All the way back and all the way forward. The way that we're mounted on this billet plate, we may only be able to go front to back on the engine. You can still move the plate. You can hold it to the left, the right, center it, however you like. No matter what, you're mounted on a solid, flat surface instead of just at the corners or across the rear and the front with a series of spacers. We couldn't ask for a better result with this exhaust. No matter how you pitch the engine, it doesn't hit the frame. You know what else doesn't hit the frame? The oil plug. When we are in the full forward position. Now we're going to kick things up a notch. This is a little more advanced, but I'm going to keep it super straightforward. We're going for a center mount. We're still going to use the aluminum risers and a billet swap plate. I switched my hardware, and we're also going to be using a standard side exit header. As you can see, I already have 4 new holes drilled. Those holes line up with these slots. When we put our bolts through, they go down in, they sit flush, and they allow the plate to go back and forth. The engine is going to get mounted from these holes. So the bolts will go in something like a stud. So these ones will be flush, and then the engine goes on top and bolts to these. If we were to leave it in this position where it says front, we are only going to gain about a ½ inch to the left. That's not going to make center. What are we going to do about that? We turn the plate around so that it's backwards. When we line up with our slots, we have our front to back and our side to side. However, we're going to be able to go a lot further. That's going to get us where we need to be. You can see the overhang from that angle there. Now we're going to attach this plate to the block itself. First bolts we're going to place in are going to be the ones that go through the plate and pass through the stock plate, holding it on in the first place. So that'll be 1, 2, 3, and 4. When we pick that up, those fall down. I'm going to set this on my knee so that 2 are to the left and 2 to the right. My knee will be in the middle. I then place the engine on top of the plate, and I use both hands to reach around and place the, we'll call them stud bolts, up through these slots, out through these holes, and then I'm going to shoot for a washer and a nut. It's easier to show you with the engine sitting on top of a Dynacam's box. See how these bolts pass by freely? There's nothing hanging them up. I'm then able to feed these ones up from the bottom and washer and nut on the top. Next, we're going to place our spacers right over the new holes. This is going to give us that same lift that we need to get our forward and back and still have clearance for that darn oil plug. Now that I have the engine on the plate, on the risers, we can add the washers and nuts. I don't have them completely tight because we still have to see if this thing moves. All the way forward, all the way back, forward and back. In the full back position, we are a 1/4 to 1/2 inch further back than stock. That's going to help us a little bit with our foot pegs, depending on how much tension we have to put on the chain. If you slide this thing forward, you can see our drain plug clears just the same. We actually gained a little bit of motion. From the rear, looking down in towards the engine, you can see how centered the valve cover is now. When we get down and look up at the engine plate itself, you can see how much overhang we created. We moved this block over substantially. And looking back at that sprocket, I'd say we may have opened up a few more options. The most noticeable difference is going to be when you're sitting on the mini bike. Moving back helped that foot peg just a little bit, but moving the engine over made this just about perfect. Unlike this beautiful header I spent all this time working on, the side exit header that I have, well, it goes from 1 inch to 1 5/16 inches. I still want to keep the option of using the trumpet and a Mini 91. So I'm going to have to trim things back a little bit. 1 inch is right about there. I just lopped it off and then hit it with a coat of the high heat grill paint. Now I'm going to slide on the Mini 91, take it outside, and give it a wrap. I don't think we're going to have any problems here. Not at all. In the next video, we're going to upgrade the grips, add a new throttle cable, have some fuel line, a shutoff valve, and even a spare kill switch. Whatever it takes to get this thing started. Because as always, it's a work in progress. Have a good night, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.
I want you to stay.